This is a special one. Our next keynote speaker is here to talk about central bank digital currencies and what are India's options. And I can say this proudly that you do not want to miss this one. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Preet Deep Singh. Dr. Preet Deep Singh leads the One District, One Product team at Invest India under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. He's ranked in the top 10% of all researchers at SSRM. He holds a PhD in finance from IIM Ahmedabad. He teaches a course on blockchain in finance at IIT Kanpur. And apart from his own startup, he has supported state governments in their startup policy as a consultant and has led a Startup India initiative. Uh, Dr. Singh, it's an absolute honor to have you with us here today at CWC. We're actually looking forward to your address. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, Anurag. Do I just start? Do I get to keep asking you if my screen's visible and everything?
You're visible and we can hear you clearly, so the stage is all yours.
Okay, awesome, great. So let me just use the present. Just maybe give me a moment. I'll just see if my settings allow. Okay, this should work out. Okay, wait. So there seems to be a bit of an issue in sharing the screen. What I'll do is I'll probably. Can I just join from another link? Anurag, is that fine? Is that going to be okay?
No, I think you will only be able to because then there will be a bit of an echo because you joining from two places would not be good.
Then
So,
maybe allow me to just rejoin.
yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay,
We'll
just allow
request
me.
our audiences to wait for another a minute or so.
Okay,
Uh,
so just give me like a moment. I'm rejoining. Okay.
yes, yes, please. No problem at all. While we wait for Mr. Singh, apologies again for the inconvenience. Dr. Singh, are you able to share your presentation now?
Sorry, am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes, yes, yes. You're visible and we can hear you very clearly. Are you able to present your presentation? Are you facing some sort of a trouble there, Dr. Singh?
Is this better? No. Can you hear me? Not.
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. I can see you also.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yes, yes.
So let me see if I can present from this one. I've actually switched machines. So let me see if I can present from this one.
All right.
Let me know if my
Yes.
screen is visible whenever it
Yes,
is.
it is. It is visible. I think we can get started.
We can get started. Okay, great, great. So just maybe allow me a moment to sort this, and we start here. Okay, great. We talk about technology and we fail in presenting simple slides. I think that tells us a lot about where we are with regard to any sort of technological progress. Are we ready? Are we not? But okay, I'll still take a stab. I'm Dr. Preet. I'm the Chief Analytics Officer at Invest India. Blockchain is something that is close to my heart. I understand this a bit. I had a startup. It worked a bit to an extent. I worked with the government on this. So RBI recently came out with a white paper on central bank digital currency. Just to give you folks like a background, central bank digital currency is basically rupees money, simple fiat money, but issued in a digital form, right? So a CBDC is basically digital money. Uh, the toughest part in this entire process is to get your head around the idea that Paytm money and CBDC are not the same. Think of digital money, you're thinking of Paytm money, or you're thinking of using UPI or Beam or Google Pay and then transferring money. You're thinking that's digital money. It is slightly different. It's a more technical difference, and these minor details usually lead to a lot of changes. So what RBI has recently come up with is this digital currency. It is also something that is seen as an alternative to virtual currencies. So virtual currency is essentially Bitcoin, Ripple, any of the other cryptocurrencies that you have. Government of India has defined it broadly as virtual currencies. Uh, some points of difference: it's not encrypted; it's got a password versus an encryption. It does not need to be exchanged for fiat currency. The value of one Bitcoin could be, X dollars. It is considered as a store of value that needs to be exchanged, right? On the other hand, digital currency is not something that needs to be exchanged. uh, it's not a token change. For virtual currencies you have token change. For when you do Paytm wallet, it is a token change, but this is not a token change but actual money change. This takes a while to figure out, so all I would request you to do right now is to be with me and assume that okay, they are different, right? Otherwise a lot of the other things fall flat. uh, Bigger things: central bank is the only money that does not have any liquidity or credit risk. A normal bank, I remember sometime in 2021 or 20, when Yes Bank had those restrictions, right? I think Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank also had those restrictions. And what happens is, if any sort of bank undergoes a problem, there would be restrictions. So what you need to figure out is how your money can be the safest, right? Uh, what this means is that the central bank money is never going to have credit risk. It is actually sovereign. So it is equivalent to the 100 rupee note that you have in your hand. Central bank currency will have that sort of value. It will not be volatile. Not just not that volatile, it will just not be volatile, right? These are some other differences that IBEF had shared. Indian Brand Equity Foundation, they do some great work. I follow their page a lot, and it looks at who is the intermediary. In a CBDC, it is going to be the banks or the central bank. In a cryptocurrency, it's somebody else. Uh, who is overseeing this, right? So in a cryptocurrency framework, it is distributed to a large extent. In CBDC, the central bank, the central body is going to do it. You don't need to switch between fiat currency and non-fiat currency. It's going to be very stable. uh, and one is going to use a lot of encryption and the other is going to use passwords, right? And this is a key difference if you ask me. uh, Breaking passwords is easier than breaking encryption. but we will revisit that in the course of our discussion. Are we the only ones doing this? Is this happening only in India? Are we the only ones or the first ones to do this? You realize that there are more than 100 countries that are currently uh, looking at central bank digital currencies. More than 100 countries are exploring CBDCs. Uh, there was this one sand dollar in the Bahamas that was 2 years ago that had come up. And after that, all the other countries have picked up. China and South Korea are in pilot stages to the extent that next year, China says a lot of people will be using the Chinese currency, the e-renminbi. Uh, it'll have widespread use, right? So China has been experimenting a fair bit, and they also have a very widespread economy with huge diversity. We've got Project Jasper in Canada, you've been in Singapore, and there are two more interesting projects that are going on. One is the Bridge project, the other is the Dunbar project. What this allows is for countries like the countries that are part of the Bridge project, the cross border settlement also comes together, right? Many of you would already be aware that one of the bigger things that we think of when we think of Bitcoin or Ripple is cross-border money transactions, right? Now, if instead of these upstarts doing this, upstarts upsetting the status quo, what if the sovereigns started upsetting the status quo, right? So this is an example of that. This is an example of governments innovating, and they're innovating to solve a real need, which is money needs to change hands, money needs to cross borders and boundaries, and they get to know when this is happening. So if you're looking at anti-money laundering, this is a step in that direction. uh, what the RBI paper currently says is there will be minimum or no disruption, right? So one of the bases of this entire CBDC proposal is that it needs to complement existing forms of money. It is not going to replace what we have. It is not even going to replace UPI or NPCI or RTGS or IMPS or Beam or Google Pay, Paytm, wallets, whatever you have. This is going to be an added feature to the entire bouquet that we have. It's a feeling of great pride when you think of us being at the forefront of UPI tech. We accounted for almost 48% of all UPI transactions in the previous financial year, and the next best was at 19. So we are the world leaders. We are helping other countries also with this. This is going to add to our kitty of being at the cutting edge of technology. um, uh, I'm guessing we'll have questions uh, consolidated at the end. If there's something I need to answer in the middle, just let me know, because I'm looking at the screen, so I wouldn't know that, right? I'm hoping that's a yes. Okay, great. The RBI also understands that there might be high fixed and upfront expenditure, but it will have low marginal cost. And you're thinking कि अरे यार पैसा ही तो छापना है, हमारी अपनी तो मशीन है, we've got the whole setup. How much does it cost to print money? RBI spent close to 5,000 crore rupees. For the international audience, that's more than $500 million. $500 million were spent just on printing the money that RBI printed last year. $500 million. And this does not take into account any environment, any sustainability, any paper, any recycling costs, and any other ESG costs that you can think of, right? So that's $500 million gone to produce X billion, right? Now, all this comes down drastically with these new features that we're talking about. Digital design is really easy to change. It's a couple of clicks that go in, much better than the physical format that we currently have. The RBI Act has been amended to include digitally issued money, right? So that's like a major step that signals the seriousness with which the government is looking at this proposition. uh, this is a set of uh, what different countries are doing in different places. uh, and whether they have all these features or not, whether they have cross-border payments or not. You can see the last column, a lot of them have cross-border payments, right? Um, Now let's look at some of the questions that India is actually looking at. One is, should it be at the wholesale level or should it be at the retail level? So at the wholesale level could be a central bank issued digital currency for bigger players, for let's say qualified institutional buyers, qualified institutional banks, scheduled commercial banks, or cooperative banks, or Payments Corporation of India, or clearing houses, right? So it will be bigger transactions, but fewer transactions. Retail, if it is open to you and I, it's going to be a lot of smaller transactions, but the quantum is going to be very, very high. We have crores of transactions on the UPI app every month, right? So you can assume the sort of numbers that we might see in this, which requires a different infrastructure. For now, it seems that we would be going ahead with both the options. We would be issuing CBDC wholesale and CBDC retail, CBDC being central bank issued digital currency. Uh, should it be direct? When you talk about direct, it means it's RBI issued, it's got low private sector involvement, and it is based on disintermediation. Now, I know all the people present here today would really like to hear this word a lot more about disintermediation, and that's what the direct model is going to be all about. The other option is the indirect model, where it is done through intermediaries who take care of KYC and AML. Right now, when you open a bank account with, let's say, HDFC Bank, the bank does your KYC, you know your customer approvals and your anti-money laundering guidelines. The bank follows these. RBI does not follow these. RBI monitors the banks. RBI does not take your Aadhaar card or your photo ID to check things, right? So the onus is on the intermediaries in this, which could be any sort of payment providers also. Uh, it seems for now that India's options are closely aligned with the indirect model or the hybrid model. The hybrid model being that CBDC wholesale goes to bigger players and CBDC retail goes through the indirect model to everybody else. So RBI issues it to CBDC wholesale, issues CBDC wholesale to bigger players, and the intermediaries thereon issue CBDC retail. Another interesting question is token based or account based, right? So in a token based sort of a system, it'll be like banknotes. It'll be bearer based, which means if I have a token in a wallet or a digital sort of application, it is like a banknote, right? And each note, each token can be numbered. uh, the problem for this is that every time I give that token to somebody else, the other person will have to verify whether this should belong to me or not. The entire ownership chain for that token will be stored in an encrypted form. Folks who are familiar with blockchain definitely understand how this is done. Uh, the token is not fungible. The token is practically like a 10 rupee note or a 100 rupee note or a $100 bill. Anybody who has it can spend it. They don't need to have a bank account. They don't need to ensure anything apart from the fact that the record for that particular token, the ownership, shows you as the rightful owner. And as soon as it is transferred to the next person, the record is updated. It has a unique number. Current bearer notes also have unique numbers. Unique numbers plus ownership record means in case of fraud, these tokens can be recalled or restored, right? And this is a very important factor. If somebody defrauds you, you actually have access to take back all this money. This concept per se is not as new as you might think. If you think of land titles or property titles, right? There is a very clear maxim in law that says nobody can pass on a title better than what he or she has, which means if I buy a piece of land that is tainted, even if I sell it forward, it remains tainted. And tomorrow, if a court orders for this money to be refunded, for this land parcel to be refunded or given back to the original owner, nobody in the entire chain has that ownership, right? So this is then going to be treated like property to that extent, where everything is traceable. Land titles are traceable. For every piece of land in India, you can trace back who was the original owner, who got it from the president, their children, their daughter, their son-in-law, sold to somebody, mortgaged with the bank, auctioned to somebody. The entire land property records are available. It will be similar with these tokens, right? So that is one way of dealing with central bank digital currency. The other way is the account based. Now, this is the one that we are more familiar with. This is the one we are more used to. The downside of this sort of a thing is that every time you make a digital currency transaction, your balance is checked, right? We already have the infra in place for this. Even right now, if you have to go from ICICI to a friend's Axis Bank account, ICICI is going to check whether you have this money or not, right? You need to have the entire KYC procedure when you open the account, and every time this money comes in or goes out, your ledger is updated. There will be no anonymity whatsoever. The token can have theoretical anonymity. In the account based model, there will be no anonymity whatsoever. It's like a credit card transaction where the merchant knows who you are, the card is in your name, and your account details are with the intermediary. Okay, now comes for the slightly more interesting part. I have taken the liberty to call it the most interesting. Um, I'm sure a number of you are thinking whether this currency would be hosted on an existing blockchain. I had a friend who recently asked, why doesn't the government use the Ethereum blockchain now that the great switch, as they're calling it, has already happened, and it's less energy intensive. So RBI has laid down certain guidelines that they will consider when it comes to choosing the technology. This hasn't been chosen yet; they're still under consideration. The first thing that they've said is scalability, right? And scalability becomes slightly important because currently Visa processes uh, lakhs and lakhs of transactions every second, right? And if you look at even our best cryptocurrencies, the number of transactions that they process every second is hardly 1/100th of the entire bit, right? Uh, so I hate to say this, I hate to say it to this audience. It's a great thing that we don't see each other physically, but DLT is not ready yet to take up the onus of a pan India level digital currency. As simple as that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but that's what it is. It needs to be stable. Technology needs to be stable. I think everybody agrees with that part. Tamper proof. Technology has to be tamper proof. So, in fact, in the RBI consultation paper, they have clearly mentioned that distributed ledger tech improves transparency but does not does not protect against cyber attacks, does not guarantee cyber security. For those of you who are interested in a slightly more technical angle to this entire thing, the Byzantine fault tolerance for digital currencies that are not issued by central banks, private virtual currencies or cryptocurrencies, is at 50-51%, right? No matter how you want to slice or dice it. 50% is not good enough for a central bank issued currency because you need it to be tamper proof. You need it to remain stable, right? If you're looking at something like this, one of the main goals in the entire bit is to have cross-platform interoperability, which means we want people to build tech on this. The government wants people to create solutions in this. The government wants people to be using this stack and then creating value out of it, right? configurable workflows. This is very interesting. I remember we were listening to Brutalic, and he said that he, the first time he heard about Bitcoin, he tried to create an app on it, right? And it took him more than 2 months. And then he created Ethereum with the sole goal that that entire 2 month period could be crashed to a couple of days, right? So what this means is that technology needs to be configurable and amenable to change whatever workflows you have, allowing people to build on existing technology and add innovation to the entire bit. Data analytics, I'm guessing all of them definitely have it. Even if they don't, you can add a layer. But they have mentioned this as a key consideration for technology. uh, Benefits, they've mentioned the benefits. Settlement is going to be a breeze. All your T+2s and 2 days and 3 days and 1 day and 1 week is going to be like this. Settlement is going to be a breeze. Innovation, you create programmable currency, and the sort of upside is amazing. Cross border transactions, breeze. Issuance more efficient. I told you, the Central Bank of India spent more than $500 million in issuing money just in 1 year, and this is going to dramatically reduce that money. Uh, this is what I would say a game changer. You know, on one side we're talking about energy guzzling algorithms that require mining. On the other side, we have central bank issued digital currencies that are taking a very serious required view of offline transactions. And it takes you a moment to understand how can something digital be offline, right? And I'll give you an example from my knowledge. Imagine NFC. For NFC, you don't really have to be connected to the internet, right? You have to be connected to the internet to process it. But two devices, even without internet, could get NFC if they have the relevant apps, right? Now, offline transactions, they will change the game. They will uproot every other way of transacting that you can think of, because no matter who you are, where you are, you do not want to be dependent on internet to get something done. Even if you have 80% of the time you have network, and you like to travel the other 20% of the time, you go to far-flung island, you would want something that caters to the entire 100% bit and not just the 80% bit. uh, in India, people vary in terms of connectivity, in terms of being savvy. uh, the Visa came out with a white paper sometime back. They had this mention of offline transactions. They lacked one major thing, and that was the double spend prevention. Folks who understand blockchain and cryptocurrency know that double spend is one of the biggest positives in the entire cryptocurrency scenario, right? So RBI has asked for what are the options that we have to ensure that offline transactions can be handled well. My own suggestion is that you can have monetary limits. For example, if I have, while I'm connected, the last balance I have is $100. uh, as I move forward into a offline transaction, it should be limited to, let's say, 50, 60, or 80% of my last online balance. What that does is there is no way that I can overspend what I have, right? So it will always remain within limit. So it is a possibility, but this is a key consideration for what RBI is doing. They've also
Uh,
asked if these should be interest bearing or not. Yeah, go on, Amrit.
Dr. Singh, so we are sort of running out of time. We have the next panel waiting for us. So if I can request you to, conclude it,
Cool.
and
I'll
we
just wrap
have.
up. Maybe another 2 3 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just couple of minutes. Yes.
No. Right. So whether they should be interest bearing or not, so I think they're tending more towards non-interest bearing, because if they're interest bearing, then why would you keep your money in a bank, right? Should it be fixed denomination like a 100 rupee note, or should it be fungible? Uh, okay. If there are three things that you take away, one of them is programmable money. if I want to give subsidy for education, I could transfer $3,000 to your account, and that money can only be spent with an educational institution or a bookseller. You can program this money. Money can be expired. You can say that you need to be spending this money within 1 year, or it gets expired, right? It is not clear what the impact on monetary policy might be. UPI, yes, bank loans. If people start shifting to CBDCs that are issued by the central bank, how are we going to give bank loans? If all the money is going to be this fungible, then there might be runs on the bank. I don't know how many of you remember the Robinhood stonk that they did. A negative interest bearing CBDC is a possibility there. The way forward for this is there will be consultations for tech architecture. You understand the impact. There will be a pilot system, and over time you integrate with other banking systems. Thanks. If there are any questions, I think we could take them now. Great.
So
I'm
yes,
good actually. This was it from my end.
we do not have enough time, but thank you so much. And we requested WCF founder partner Abhinav Jain to come on. What he especially requested to be here for a vote of thanks specifically here.
That's really nice.
Jain, all of
Go on.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Preet. I think it was such a illustrative and informative presentation that you gave, and a lot of people have a lot of confusions about CBDC. Though there are hundreds of questions coming, I would just simply tell you is that probably we'll need to host you again, for a detailed conversation about it, and we'll look forward to speak to you soon on that. But thank you so much for joining, and we'll look forward to learn more. Thank you so much, Dr. Preet.
My pleasure,
Thank you so
Abhinav.
much.
Thank you, Anuvrat. See you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.